Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to week 7. In the past week for my company, I've been working incredibly hard. This has probably been one of the most grueling periods of work I've ever experienced in e commerce and wholesale. I think I've worked between 12 to 14-hour days for the past 9 days. September 1st was Labor Day, which is a public holiday, but instead of taking it off, my wife and I ended up going to the warehouse to continually prep more products, and that ended up being like a 12-hour workday plus an extra 2 hours working at home afterwards on the computer, doing some wrap up activities. Business overall has been really tough, and it's been a huge mental challenge for me to try to push through and make it through some of these longer, grueling days. The silver lining in all of this is that obviously all this hard work is paying off and leading to higher revenues and higher profits. So, with that being said, total revenue in the month of August was $55,121, which makes the month of August the second best month I've had this year so far, second to January. That's a huge improvement from the month before, where total revenue was around $36,000. So I'm definitely thrilled and excited for all this business growth. But the trade off is all of this physical and mental toll that this company and this work has been taking on me. I honestly feel like my lifespan and my life expectancy has dropped by like 2 years just from this past week alone. Not only is there a lot of work to do in terms of prepping thousands of units for outbound shipment, but it involves a lot of like physical heavy lifting. Last week I talked about how I moved everything from one warehouse to the next. That was a lot of heavy lifting. And then I also mentioned how just pallet after pallet after pallet kept coming through the freight carriers. And that was a lot of heavy lifting as well. And it kind of got to this point where I was just at the warehouse this past week, just feeling kind of defeated from so much work that I have going on. And so, one of the things that I talked about last week was that I'm looking to begin hiring for a warehouse associate. So, a lot of the work that I've been doing this week revolves around the hiring for this candidate. Late last week, I uploaded the job posting on Indeed, and then I began to get a ton of inquiries and applications for the role. I spent the next few days over the weekend kind of going through all of the resumes and applications and doing the initial screening criteria to see which candidate makes sense to offer a video interview. And then starting this week is when I began to host those video interviews. I had a total of maybe 45 candidates apply for the job. Out of the 45, I asked 16 to move on to an interview with me. Of the 16 candidates, only 7 actually responded in the affirmative, and of the 7 that responded, 4 of them actually showed up to the interview. So that's a very low kind of conversion rate from each step to the next. Something that I definitely was not expecting. So that leaves me right now with a total of 3 candidates that I can choose from. Thankfully, all 3 of the candidates who actually showed up to the interview seem to be like decent fits for the role, and I'd be happy to hire either one of them. For me, I'm looking for something more part-time, especially as I ramp up and grow the business. I don't want to promise like a full-time job if there isn't enough labor to kind of fulfill their needs and requirements. But at the same time, I would want someone that has the flexibility that if the time comes when I do need to ramp up and scale up hours, that they would be willing to take on those additional hours. And I found that the kind of candidate that fits this role the best tend to be students. And thankfully, here in San Francisco, there's a ton of universities. And so, one of the things that I'm looking to do is perhaps also in the future post on the school job board applications website and see if I can get some part time labor from students as well. In terms of time frame of getting the new candidate up to speed, I'm hoping to have them in the warehouse mid to late next week, which is a pretty fast turnaround rate. Outside of hiring and outside of August revenue, I've also been focusing tremendously on preparing for Q4. I said in one of my previous videos that early September and preferably September 1st would be kind of our goal date of when we would place all of the orders for Q4, knowing that Amazon requires you to send in inventory by, mid to late October if you want your product to be eligible for FBA Amazon Prime shipping during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And so we ended up spending a lot of money on our Q4 products this past week, and they will shortly be arriving in our warehouse, where hopefully the new warehouse associate would play a huge role in helping us get those products out the door and ready for sale. One of the things that I've been thinking about more recently is about paying myself a salary and paying myself consistently throughout the year. Now, I've been reading this book. It's called Profit First, and the author is Mike Michalowicz. And in this book, Mike advocates for paying yourself regularly. And he talks about how paying yourself regularly is actually important for business health. I think oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we try to delay paying ourselves because we think that as an entrepreneur, we need to be all in with the business. And being all in means delaying gratification, delaying paying yourself so that you can take all of the company profits and reinvest it into the business day in and day out, month after month, year after year, to continually grow your business. And that definitely makes a lot of sense because if you were to take a lot of profits in the beginning of your company, that might stifle whatever kind of growth that you could potentially achieve. But instead, Mike advocates for paying yourself a salary regularly. And his kind of rationale is that by not paying yourself, you end up growing the cash pile and cash reserves in your company. And then, as optimistic entrepreneurs, we're always looking for ways to deploy that capital in ways that grow the company. With limited capital, we're able to just deploy it using our best ideas, but with a lot of capital, we end up going lower down on the list and deploying capital in not very smart ways. And so by paying yourself a salary, you're essentially limiting the amount of cash reserves on hand, preventing yourself from spending your money on stupid things and just focusing on your best ideas for growth. Now, this obviously is a huge thing for me in my company from personal experience. I have wasted tens of thousands of dollars on ideas that kind of was just burning money. I've wasted so much money on advertising. I've wasted money in private label launching products that I should never have touched to begin with. And I honestly, instead of paying myself a salary, I ended up spending all that money on those failed things. And I wish that I read this book a long time ago because it probably would have helped save me from a lot of that pain and heartache from, working so hard but not having a lot of profit to show for it because you spent all that profit on things that ended up not working out. With that in mind, I've been steadily paying myself an increasingly larger amount of money month over month. There is a goal salary that I'm trying to attain and achieve, but I'm just working my way up slowly to get there. One of the things that isn't really talked about a lot in e-commerce is how difficult it is to pay yourself a salary. So let me kind of just do some basic math for you. Let's say that you do $1 million in revenue per year and your net profit margin is 20%, which means that your take-home profit is $200,000. Now, of that $200,000, how much of that should you pay yourself as a salary versus reinvesting in the company? If you paid yourself the full $200,000, your company would not be growing year on year because you're taking all the profits for yourself. But if you pay yourself $0, your company would grow at a 20% rate. However, you won't be able to provide for your basic necessities like the roof over your head and the food that you're eating. So somewhere in the middle is the place that I guess we should be at. But how do you trade off, personal income versus growth of the company? And that's something that I've always struggled with. After reading this book, I definitely err on the side of wanting to increase my salary, and I'm thinking of paying myself 50% of whatever net profits that I make and then reinvesting the other 50%. So that's going to be my goal come end of the year as we look to close out this year through salary, through owner distributions, I'm going to try to take 50% of whatever profit that I make this year and then reinvest the rest into growing the business. And the final thing I want to talk about this week is some of the travel trips and plans I have coming up in October. So I am going to be at Sellers United on October 16th, and it's going to take place in New Jersey. So if any of you guys are going, let me know. I'd love to meet up and meet people face to face on the convention floor. And I think that's going to be a fun time. My wife is going to be coming with me, and we're going to be spending a week in New York. I have some friends out there as well, so it's going to be a good time to catch up with my friends on the East Coast. Outside of that, one of my wholesale network friends is going to be hosting us in the South. I think we're going to go to Mississippi. They have like a vacation home somewhere over there. I've never been to the South, and I especially never been to Mississippi, so I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait for that as well. Honestly, traveling has been a point of stress for me recently. Every time I'm on vacation traveling, I'm just thinking about work, which is probably not a healthy place to be at. I'm hoping that with the new warehouse associate employee and with all the new processes I'm having in place of getting inventory out, that should alleviate a lot of mind share that the stuff takes. And hopefully, I can enjoy my time traveling and just being present in the moment, spending time with those around me. So that pretty much wraps up this video, you guys. Thank you so much for sticking around, and I will see you guys next week.